The call came at 2:47 a.m. A woman's voice, eerily familiar. Sarah? I'm Emma Chin. I think you're my twin sister. I'd been Sarah Morrison for 20 years. No siblings, no extended family. My parents in Pinehurst, California had always been vague about relatives. We were born October 15, 1995, at Sacred Heart Medical Center in Bakersfield. She continued. You were adopted at 6 months. My birth date. My birth hospital. Details I'd never shared with anyone. I'm dying, Emma said. Leukemia. I need bone marrow, and twins are perfect matches. The next morning, I confronted my parents. Their faces confirmed everything. We kept it from you to protect you, Mom said through tears. The Chin family. Jennifer was a drug addict. We saved you. Emma was raised by Jennifer's mother in Oakland, Dad added. We drove by once. Gang members, drug dealers. We thank God we had you instead. You just forgot about her? We are your family, Mom said coldly. Some stranger with your DNA doesn't get to claim you now. I met Emma at a diner in Fresno. It was like looking in a mirror, same eyes, nose, mannerisms. Only she was thin from chemo, wearing a cap to hide hair loss. She tried to find me years ago, but my parents had lawyers send cease and desist letters, claiming I knew about her and didn't want contact. I respected what I thought were your wishes, she said. Until I got sick. The adoption papers confirmed everything. Our birth mother died of an overdose when we were 3. A family wanted one baby, not twins. They chose me. Tests confirmed I was a perfect match. When I told my parents, they delivered an ultimatum. Continue this relationship and you're no longer our daughter. We'll cut you off completely. Is it worth it? Dad demanded. Yes, I said quietly. Emma moved into my guest room before the transplant. Living with her was like having a missing part of myself. She understood me in ways my husband Mark never had. But strange things started happening. I'd find her standing at windows at night, staring out. She claimed she was sleepwalking. Then came the dreams, vivid nightmares about growing up poor in Oakland, watching drug deals, going to bed hungry. In the dreams, I was Emma. Have you been having strange dreams about my childhood? I asked. She set down her spoon carefully. How would you dream about my childhood? Sometimes separated twins share experiences, she said. Dreams, emotions, sensations. That's how I found you. I've been dreaming about your life for years. She knew details I'd never shared. Our blue shutters, white picket fence, Mark's name. The transplant went smoothly. As Emma recovered, I deteriorated. Exhaustion, headaches, and worst of all, fugue states where I'd lose hours with no memory. During one episode, I found myself in my car outside my parents' house at 3 a.m. A notebook on the passenger seat contained detailed surveillance notes, and handwriting that looked like mine but wasn't quite right. The final entry read, They think they're safe. Soon, they'll pay for what they did to us. I confronted Emma. She studied the notebook casually. This is your handwriting, Sarah. I didn't write this. Are you sure you don't want them to pay? Emma, you can't hurt them. We're not just twins, she said, her expression turning cold. We're two halves of the same person. Now that we're together, those halves are merging. That's not possible. How do you explain the dreams? The lost time? The notebook you don't remember writing? She was right about one thing. I did hate my parents for the lies, the ultimatum, their willingness to let her die. But I didn't want to hurt them. I'm calling the police. To tell them what? Your car, your handwriting, your fingerprints. The evidence shows you're planning to hurt your parents. I ran for the door, but she was faster. When she grabbed my arm, everything went black. I woke up tied to a chair in my basement. Emma sat across from me, no longer hiding the madness. The transplant wasn't just about saving my life, she said. My bone marrow is in your bloodstream now. My cells are becoming your cells. We're becoming one person. She held up my car keys. your car, your fingerprints, your motive. After tonight, there won't be two of us anymore. Just one. The strong one. What do you mean? After we visit the Morrisons, you're going to have an accident. I'll take over your life, your house, your job, your husband. Everything that should have been mine. Mark will know you're not me. Will he? Same DNA, same fingerprints, same memories now. I know he takes coffee with 2 sugars, has a scar on his left shoulder, calls you sunshine when apologizing. Details I'd never shared with her. She handed me the keys. Time to finish what we started. For a moment, I felt a terrifying urge to take them. To confront my parents with everything they'd done. But I remembered who I really was. A nurse who helped people, not hurt them. Someone who'd risked everything to save her sister's life. No, I said, throwing the keys across the room. Emma's mask dropped completely. We fought until I managed to call 911. Police found her barricaded in the basement, ranting about twins and stolen lives. She was hospitalized for 6 months. Doctors said she'd suffered a psychotic break from illness, stress, and adoption trauma. They claimed the bone marrow transplant had nothing to do with her delusions. But I know better. I know what I experienced, the shared dreams, lost time, the feeling we were becoming one person. Emma was released last month, deemed stable. She calls daily, asking when we can meet. She sounds normal, rational, like the sweet woman I first met. But I've learned not to trust appearances. I've changed my number, moved cities, considered changing my name. But I know she'll find me eventually. Twins always do. And sometimes, late at night, I dream about her life, her anger, her plans. I wake up wondering if those dreams are really mine, or if part of her is still living inside me, waiting for the right moment to take control. Have you ever discovered something about your family that changed everything you thought you knew about yourself? What secrets might the people who raised you be hiding? I'm Detective Marcus Williams with the Oakwood Police Department. What happened on Sycamore Drive in November 2023 still haunts everyone involved. A family was driven to the edge of sanity by what they believed was systematic stalking, but the truth was far more disturbing. It started with a call from Janet Rodriguez on November 3rd. She and her husband Carlos had moved to 1247 Sycamore Drive 6 months earlier, a quiet suburban street in Oakwood with well-maintained lawns and friendly neighbors. "There's someone watching our house," Janet said, her voice shaking. "Every night, around 11 p.m., I see a figure standing across the street under the streetlight. When I look directly, they disappear." I drove out that evening. Sycamore Drive was typical suburban, 2-story homes, mature trees, cars parked in driveways. Nothing unusual. I parked and waited until midnight. No mysterious figure appeared. "Must have been a neighbor walking their dog," I told Janet. "Call if it happens again." She called the next night. And the next. Always the same story, a figure watching their house, vanishing when spotted directly. On November 8th, things escalated. Janet called at 7 a.m., hysterical. "They were in our backyard. Carlos saw them through the kitchen window around 2 a.m. A person standing by our fence, just staring at the house." Carlos, a construction foreman, was normally steady. But when I interviewed him, his hands shook as he described the figure. About average height, wearing dark clothes. When I turned on the porch light, they were gone. Like they just vanished. I examined their backyard. The grass was damp from overnight rain, but I found no footprints, no disturbed vegetation. The fence showed no signs of climbing. "Maybe it was a shadow from the tree branches," I suggested. "Shadows don't stand perfectly still for 10 minutes, Carlos replied. By November 15th, the Rodriguez family was falling apart. Janet had dark circles under her eyes, jumping at every sound. Their teenage daughter Maria was afraid to walk to the school bus stop. Carlos had started sleeping with a baseball bat. "They're escalating," Janet insisted during my 3rd visit. "Yesterday, I saw them during the day. Standing in the Patel's driveway across the street, watching our house. When I went to confront them, They walked behind the house and disappeared. I spoke with the Patels, elderly immigrants who'd lived on Sycamore Drive for 20 years. They hadn't seen anyone in their driveway and were concerned about the Rodriguez family's increasingly erratic behavior. "The woman, she stares at us from her window," Mrs. Patel said. "Sometimes she stands in her yard pointing at our house, talking to herself." The situation came to a head on November 20th. Janet called 911 at 3:47 a.m., screaming that someone was trying to break into their house. "They're at the front door. I can see them through the peephole." I arrived within minutes, along with backup units. We surrounded the house, floodlights illuminating every corner. There was no one at the front door. No one in the yard. No footprints in the frost-covered grass. Inside, I found the Rodriguez family huddled in their living room. Janet was gripping a kitchen knife, Carlos held his baseball bat, and Maria was recording everything on her phone. "Where did they go?" Janet demanded. "You had to have seen them. Mrs. Rodriguez, there's no one here. There never was. You're lying. Or you're working with them." That's when I noticed something odd. Maria was still recording, panning her phone camera across the living room. On her screen, I could see the family clearly, but there were two figures standing behind the couch that weren't visible to my naked eye. "Maria, let me see your phone." She handed it over, and I watched the playback. Through the camera, I could clearly see two identical figures in dark clothing standing behind the couch. They looked exactly like each other, same height, same build, same clothes. But when I looked up at the actual room, there was nothing there. "Do you see them now?" Janet whispered. I looked at the phone screen again. The figures were still there, perfectly still, facing the camera. When I moved the phone, they seemed to follow the movement. "This is impossible," I muttered. "It's not impossible," Maria said quietly. "It's been happening for weeks. They only show up on cameras and mirrors. Never when you look directly." I spent the next hour testing this phenomenon. The figures appeared consistently on every camera, Maria's phone, my body cam, even the Ring doorbell footage. But they cast no reflection in mirrors, left no footprints, made no sound. The figures were identical in every way. Same facial features, same clothes, same movements. They moved in perfect synchronization, like mirror images of each other. "How long have you been seeing them on camera?" I asked Maria. "Since the second week," she said. "I started recording when Mom and Dad kept talking about the Watcher. I thought I could prove they were imagining things. But then I saw them on my phone." I reviewed the Ring doorbell footage from the past month. The figures appeared in dozens of recordings, always in pairs, always identical. They stood in the driveway, walked past the house, even appeared to be having conversations with each other, though no audio was ever captured. "They're not ghosts," Janet said. "They're real people. They have to be. But real people don't appear only on cameras. Real people leave footprints, cast shadows, make noise. These figures did none of that." I called in a tech specialist from the state police. Sergeant Helen Park examined all the footage and equipment, looking for signs of tampering or malfunction. "The recordings are genuine," she confirmed. "No digital manipulation, no equipment malfunctions. Whatever these figures are, they're being recorded by multiple independent devices. But they're not physically present," I said. "That's the paradox. They exist in the digital realm but not in physical space." The breakthrough came when I interviewed the previous owners of 1247 Sycamore Drive. The Hendersons had sold the house to the Rodriguez family after living there for 15 years. "Did you ever experience anything unusual in the house?" I asked. Mrs. Henderson exchanged a look with her husband. "You mean the twins?" "What twins?" "The Chin twins. They lived at 1251 Sycamore until about 2 years ago. Sarah and Emma. Identical twins, mid-20s. They were odd." "Odd how?" "They were obsessed with watching the neighbors. Always standing at their windows, taking pictures, recording videos. They dressed identically, spoke identically, even moved identically. It was unsettling." "What happened to them?" They disappeared one night. Police found their car abandoned near the lake. The bodies were never recovered, but everyone assumed they'd driven into the water together. I felt a chill. Did they ever bother you specifically? Constantly. They'd stand in our yard, follow us to the store, record us through our windows. We called the police dozens of times, but they were always gone by the time officers arrived. The next day, I researched the Chin twins. Sarah and Emma Chin, identical twins who'd lived at 1251 Sycamore Drive. They'd been reported missing in March 2022 after neighbors called about their car being abandoned with the engine running. The missing persons file contained dozens of complaints from neighbors about stalking, harassment, and invasion of privacy. But every time police responded, the twins were gone. They had this ability to disappear. Officer Janet Kim had written in one report. You'd see them clearly, then turn away for a second, and they'd vanish. Like they were never there. I drove to 1251 Sycamore Drive. The house had been vacant since the twins disappeared. I walked around the property, looking for any sign of recent activity. In the backyard, I found something that made my blood run cold. 2 identical shallow depressions in the earth, side by side, as if 2 people had been lying there for a long time. That night, I returned to the Rodriguez house with a theory. I set up multiple cameras throughout their property, all pointing toward 1251 Sycamore Drive. At 11:03 p.m., they appeared. 2 identical figures emerged from the vacant house across the street. They walked in perfect synchronization toward the Rodriguez property, their movements mirror images of each other. On camera, they were crystal clear. But when I looked at the actual street, I saw nothing. The figures positioned themselves in the Rodriguez's front yard, facing the house. They stood perfectly still for exactly 10 minutes, then walked back to 1251 Sycamore Drive and disappeared. They're still doing it, I realized. Even after death, they're still stalking the neighbors. I shared my findings with a professor of paranormal psychology at the local university. Dr. Amanda Foster had studied similar cases. Identical twins sometimes share an extremely strong psychic connection, she explained. In rare cases, this connection can persist after death, especially if they died together while engaged in obsessive behavior. But why only on cameras? Digital devices can sometimes capture electromagnetic anomalies that human eyes can't perceive. The twins' obsession with recording and watching might have bound them to that specific behavior pattern. The solution came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Patel, the elderly neighbor, suggested a traditional cleansing ritual. In my country, we have ways to help trapped spirits move on, she said. They are stuck in their pattern. We must break the pattern. With the Rodriguez family's permission, we performed the ritual at 1251 Sycamore Drive. Mrs. Patel burned sage and spoke prayers in Hindi while I documented everything. At exactly 11:03 p.m., the figures appeared on camera one final time. But instead of walking toward the Rodriguez house, they stood in their own yard, facing each other. For the first time in the recordings, they moved independently. They seemed to be having a conversation, their identical faces showing different expressions. Then, simultaneously, they looked directly at the camera, directly at me, and nodded. The footage went white for exactly 10 seconds. When it cleared, they were gone. The Rodriguez family hasn't seen the figures since. The Ring doorbell footage shows nothing but empty streets. The house at 1251 Sycamore Drive was eventually sold to a young couple who reported no unusual activity. But I kept copies of all the recordings. Sometimes, late at night, I review them, trying to understand what I witnessed. The figures were so identical, so perfectly synchronized, that even in death they maintained their obsessive twin bond. The case officially remains unsolved. How do you close a file on something that defies explanation? How do you write a report about people who exist only in digital space? I've learned that some mysteries don't have rational answers. Some cases push the boundaries of what we consider possible. And sometimes, the most disturbing truth is that there are forces in this world that we simply don't understand. The Chin twins found a way to continue their obsession beyond death, trapped in an endless loop of watching and recording. They drove the Rodriguez family to the edge of madness without ever being physically present. Have you ever felt like you were being watched by someone who wasn't there? Do you think digital devices can capture things that human eyes can't see? I'm Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a psychiatrist at Valley Mental Health Center in Riverside. What happened to Linda Patterson in December 2023 challenges everything I thought I knew about human perception and psychological trauma. Linda came to me after a complete breakdown. She'd been found by paramedics in her apartment, catatonic, staring at an empty chair. When she finally spoke, her first words were, "There were two of them. There were always two." Linda worked as a bank teller at First National on Commerce Street. Quiet, reliable, no history of mental illness. Her breakdown seemed to come from nowhere. "I've been talking to Anna for 3 months," she told me during our first session. "She comes to my window every Tuesday and Thursday. Sweet girl, maybe 25, always wore a blue scarf." "What did you talk about?" "Everything. Her job at the bookstore, her sick mother, her boyfriend problems. I looked forward to her visits." Linda's story seemed normal until she reached December 15th. "Anna came in that Thursday, but something was wrong. She seemed different. Angrier. She started yelling at me about her mother's medical bills, blaming me for the bank's loan policies. People have bad days, Linda. That's what I thought. But then she left, and 5 minutes later she came back." Linda's hands shook as she continued. "She walked up to my window like nothing had happened. Sweet Anna was back, asking how my day was going. When I mentioned she'd just been there, she looked confused. Maybe she forgot. No, you don't understand. She was wearing a different outfit. The angry Anna wore a red sweater. This Anna wore the blue scarf I knew. I thought I was losing my mind." Linda started paying closer attention to Anna's visits. She noticed inconsistencies. Anna would ask about things they'd already discussed, or reference conversations that never happened. Sometimes she'd mention her boyfriend Mike, other times she'd call him David. Once she said her mother had cancer, the next visit she said her mother had diabetes. "Did you ask her about these differences?" I tried. She'd get this blank look, like she had no idea what I was talking about. The breakthrough came on December 20th. Linda was working late, processing loan applications, when she saw Anna through the window, talking to someone outside her line of sight. I could only see Anna, but she was clearly having a conversation. I heard her say, "Your turn. I'm tired of pretending to be you." Linda crept closer to the window. That's when I saw her. Another woman, identical to Anna. Same face, same hair, same height. They were switching places. Twins? Had to be. But they weren't just switching, they were coordinating. The second woman, let's call her Anna 2, was coaching Anna 1, "Remember, you like her sweater. Ask about her weekend plans." Linda watched in horror as Anna 2 walked away, and Anna 1 approached her window with a practiced smile. "How was your weekend, Linda? I love your sweater." I realized they'd been doing this for months. Taking turns. Playing the same person. I'd been having conversations with 2 different women, but I thought it was one. The twins' deception became more elaborate. Linda started documenting their visits, noting physical differences. Anna 1 had a small scar on her left hand, Anna 2 didn't. Anna 1 was left-handed, Anna 2 right-handed. "They were studying me," Linda said. "Learning my schedule, my habits, my personal information." But why? The answer came during Linda's final encounter with them. On December 22nd, both twins appeared at her window simultaneously. They stood side by side, identical smiles, identical clothes. Anna 1 said, "We need to talk, Linda." Anna 2 said, "We know about your husband." Linda had never mentioned her husband to Anna. He'd died 2 years earlier in a car accident. "How do you know about Robert?" Anna 1 laughed. "We know everything about you, Linda. Your address, your schedule, your bank account numbers. Your security code," Anna 2 added. "Your mother's maiden name." Linda realized the twins had been gathering information for months, using their identical appearance to build a complete profile of her life. "We've been watching you," Anna once said. "Following you home. Taking pictures," Anna too continued. "Learning your routine." The twins explained their plan with disturbing casualness. They'd been preparing to steal Linda's identity, using the personal information they'd gathered through months of conversation. "You trusted us," Anna once said. "You told us everything. Because you thought we were one person." Anna too laughed. "People are so stupid." Linda tried to press the security button, but Anna too held up a cell phone showing photos of Linda's apartment, her car, her route to work. "We know where you live," Anna too said. "We know you're alone. We know you have no one to call," Anna one added. That's when Linda broke. The realization that she'd been manipulated for months, that her loneliness had been exploited, that these women had been studying her like a specimen, it shattered her sense of reality. "I couldn't tell which one was speaking anymore," Linda told me. "They kept switching mid-sentence, finishing each other's thoughts. It was like talking to one person split into two bodies." Security footage from the bank confirmed Linda's account. The twins had been alternating visits for months, never appearing together until that final encounter. They'd coordinated their clothing, their stories, even their mannerisms to maintain the illusion of being a single person. "The psychological impact was devastating," I explained to the police. "Linda's mind couldn't process the deception. She'd formed an emotional connection with someone who didn't exist, a composite person created by two separate individuals." The twins vanished after that final encounter. Bank security had their images, but no names. The Anna, who'd filled out customer information cards, had used false details. Linda spent 3 weeks in psychiatric care. The trauma of discovering she'd been deceived so thoroughly that her perception of reality had been manipulated left her unable to trust her own senses. "I keep seeing double," she told me during recovery. "Every person I meet, I wonder if there's another one just like them, waiting to take their place." The case highlights a disturbing form of psychological manipulation. The twins exploited Linda's loneliness and trust, using their identical appearance to create a false relationship while gathering information for identity theft. "They turned being twins into a weapon," Linda said. "They made me doubt my own mind." What's most disturbing is how easily it worked. Linda was intelligent, observant, but the twins' coordination was so precise that she never suspected the truth until they revealed it. I've treated many cases of fraud and manipulation, but this was different. The twins didn't just steal information, they stole Linda's sense of reality. They made her question her own perception, her own memory, her own sanity. The investigation remains open. The twins are still out there, possibly targeting other victims. Their method is simple but effective: identify a lonely person, establish trust, alternate visits to avoid suspicion, and gather information over months. Linda eventually recovered, but she's never been the same. She moves through the world with constant vigilance, always wondering if the people she meets are really who they claim to be. The case taught me that our sense of identity depends on others recognizing us as unique individuals. When that recognition is manipulated, when our reality is systematically undermined, the psychological damage can be profound. Have you ever felt like someone was studying you, learning your habits and routines? How well do you really know the people you interact with regularly? I'm Lisa Chin, a real estate attorney in Westfield. What happened to the Morrison family in January 2024 started as a simple home repair job but became something far more sinister. The Morrisons hired Peterson Home Services to fix their plumbing. Tom Morrison, his wife Rachel, and their 2 teenage kids lived in a beautiful colonial on Maple Grove Drive. They'd moved there 6 months earlier and were still settling in. "We found Peterson's business card at the hardware store," Rachel told me later. "Good reviews online, reasonable prices. They seemed professional." Peterson Home Services was run by identical twins, both named James on their business cards. The Morrisons assumed it was a father-son operation or partners with the same first name. The first James was great, Tom said. Punctual, knowledgeable, fixed our kitchen sink in 2 hours. We scheduled him for the bathroom renovation the following week. That's when things got strange. The second visit, James seemed different, Rachel explained. He spent a lot of time asking about our family, our schedules, our security system. I thought he was just being friendly. What the Morrisons didn't know was that 2 different people were working in their home. James A. would handle the actual repairs while James B. documented everything about their lives. The twins' system was sophisticated. James A. would arrive, assess the work, and begin repairs. Midway through the job, he'd claim he needed supplies from his truck. James B. would enter through the back door, spend 30 minutes photographing personal items, documents, and valuable possessions, then leave. James A. would return to complete the work. I found it odd that he kept going to his truck, Tom said. Sometimes he'd be gone for 20 minutes just to get a wrench. During these absences, James B. was systematically cataloging the Morrison family's life. He photographed mail, prescription bottles, family photos, and computer passwords written on sticky notes. He even accessed their home computer while they were in other rooms. He asked a lot of questions about our daughter's college plans, Rachel remembered. Where she was applying, what scholarships she'd received. I thought he was just making conversation. The twins were gathering information for identity theft and burglary. They learned the family's routines, documented valuable items, and even discovered that Tom kept a safe in his home office. James was always very interested in our schedule, Tom said. When we worked, when the kids had school, when we went out of town. He said he wanted to work around our routine. The deception continued for 3 weeks. The twins alternated visits, with James A. doing legitimate plumbing work while James B. gathered intelligence. The Morrisons never suspected they were dealing with 2 different people. They looked identical, Rachel said. Same height, same build, same voice. The only difference was their demeanor. Some days James seemed more talkative, other days more focused on work. The scam unraveled when both twins accidentally arrived at the same time. Rachel was upstairs when she heard 2 identical voices in her kitchen. I thought Tom was talking to James, but Tom was at work. I came downstairs and saw 2 men who looked exactly alike going through our mail. The twins tried to explain it away, claiming one was James's brother helping with a large job. But Rachel had already called the police. They ran when they heard the sirens, she said. Left all their tools behind. Police investigation revealed the twins' operation. They'd been targeting affluent families for months, using legitimate home repairs as cover for extensive surveillance and information gathering. They had files on dozens of families, Detective Sarah Kim told me. Photos, personal information, financial details, security codes. They were planning coordinated burglaries and identity theft. The twins had stolen social security numbers, bank account information, and even applied for credit cards in their victims' names. They'd been using their identical appearance to create alibis. One twin would commit crimes while the other established a presence elsewhere. The psychological impact on the families was severe, I explained to the prosecutor. They'd welcomed these men into their homes, trusted them with their security, their schedules, their personal information. The Morrison family discovered the full extent of the violation when police showed them the twins' surveillance photos. Their home had been mapped in detail, their routines documented, their children's activities catalogued. We felt completely exposed, Rachel said. They knew everything about us. When we went to work, when the kids were alone, where we kept our valuables. The twins, Michael and David Peterson, were arrested 3 weeks later trying to burglarize another victim's home. They'd been operating their scam for 2 years, using their handyman business to access dozens of homes. They turned being twins into the perfect criminal partnership, Detective Kim said. One would maintain legitimacy while the other gathered intelligence. The case highlighted how predators exploit trust and familiarity. The Morrisons had no reason to suspect deception because they believed they were dealing with one honest handyman. They made us question our judgment, Tom said. How do you trust service providers when you can't tell if you're dealing with the same person? The twins were sentenced to 5 years for burglary, identity theft, and fraud. But the damage to their victims' sense of security was permanent. We installed new locks, changed all our passwords, and moved our safe, Rachel said. But we never felt safe in that house again. The Morrisons eventually sold their home and moved to a different state. They couldn't live with the knowledge that their entire lives had been documented by criminals posing as helpful handymen. The case taught me that our homes are only as secure as the people we allow inside them. When that trust is violated, the psychological damage can be as devastating as any financial loss. Have you ever had service workers in your home who seem to know too much about your family? How well do you really know the people you hire to work in your house? Thanks so much for watching. I can't express enough how much your support means. The likes, the comments, it all really helps the channel grow. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. I always take the time to read them. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on any new videos. See you next time.